Peterson climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness!
What is up, Jabronis? JJ back here with Coop, talking a little NASCAR. We're back. Obviously, last week we had a week off. I'll be honest with you. It was nice, Coop. It was nice to have a NASCAR breather. You know, even on weeks where I tell myself, you know what, probably be good for me to take a mental breather from the sport. You get that kind of like late FOMO going, right? And it's kind of hard. Yeezy. Sorry, I know I saw you on the other video. Sorry, I never give you the shout. I always try to, my guy, I always try to give you that shout. So glad you're here as well. Otter, Sterling, glad I pull up another tab and about that. Yeah, so interesting enough. Obviously, the week off is nice in its own right. But yeah, back in the saddle this week. We have I'll let you explain it in more detail, Coop, but we have what we'll call a semi-speedway. I know some folks would refer to this as a super, but it's truly not, as we were kind of talking pre-show. But Coop, how'd you enjoy the week off? You know, the week break from NASCAR, the lack of crazy sweats on a Sunday. Well, maybe you didn't enjoy it. Maybe you live for the thrill week after week, but it was a nice little mental break for me. How'd you do last week with the week off?
It's very good, man. You know, trying to get into more sports betting wise and all that. You know, I've been following the College World Series. I guess continuing to bet the unders. That's been the trend there. But, you know, at some point it's going to, turn around. So I don't know, maybe today's the day that not to bet the unders, but bet the overs. But other than that, not much, it's a light time in sports right now, other than baseball.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, right? Like it's really baseball. You have Wimbledon and the tennis streets, but I've already had the discussion, briefly with you weeks ago about my struggles with that sport emotionally, not my emotions. I feel like the players emotionally are not, where they once were when they get leads. It's just. I mean, I'm not to go too down a tennis rabbit hole, but it's just not the same type of game style feel that I've had in that sport years ago, where you watch players play and you can find advantages. The sport is really now more mentally tough. And you're just seeing it match by match. It feels like players fold a lot in matches that don't matter. So that's been a struggle for me. But yeah, ultimately this time of year, you have baseball, you have Wimbledon coming up. And then, obviously trying to find your niches here and there. Otherwise, college football's, it feels like a blink away, right? We're probably about less than 2 months away from college football. And then, yeah, you're 2.5 months from NFL too. So obviously things will speed up quick. No pun intended with this show. But yes, it's good to have NASCAR back. Obviously, we're at Nashville. So, and for those that don't know, for those checking this out for the first time, we go through Coop's entire playbook at runpuresports.com. Obviously, if you're already a member, you're getting this playbook, you're getting this information. We talk through dominators for the track. We talk through place differential drivers. We talk through the middle tiers. And when we also talk through value plays, and of course, fade drivers that Coop fades. I, of course, pick and prod where I'll add info and not. But this is really Coop's show to run. I just kind of move the levers around. In regards to free content, because everybody loves to find free content, Jason Hamlet from our group writes a great article every week, free on the website, goes through his own breakdown of the track, talks track history, the breakdown of how the tracks ran over the last few years. He has his little cheat sheet of guys that he's going to be higher weight on, lower weight on, what he considers good chalk, bad chalk, some notes on some of the guys he likes. And you'll be able to see all that for free. But again, the actual content that really talks on projections and really talks on where you should be playing more than just a handful of drivers. You'll get that at runpuresports.com, and Coop does a tremendous job with this playbook week after week. And we just run through it right over this show. We do it usually in about an hour or less. So, don't be shy. You can like the video, whether you like the content or not. It's not going to be hard for you to like the video. We are here on a Sunday afternoon. I could be doing much better things with my time right now, as I'm sure Coop can, but we're here to help. Obviously, we enjoy the back and forth in the comment section too. So don't be shy. Ask us anything. It doesn't have to be NASCAR related. One of Coop's favorite things to answer in Discord are personal questions. Ask him about his personal life. Ask him what he's got going on. What gets him up in the morning? What gets that blood flowing? So it doesn't have to be just NASCAR. Fire away in the chat. We appreciate all the comments, and of course, like the video, so you're not just douchebags, right? LOL. All right, so let's move on to your playbook here, Coop. We'll start. Before the playbook, walk us through this track. Walk us through. Maybe in more vivid detail, why some folks might consider this a super speedway and why it's actually not one, and how it's going to play out today, track-wise.
Yeah, so Nashville's interesting track. It's on its own. This will be the third year that the Cup cars have been here. Second year in this particular car. The first year, Kyle Larson just ran away with it in the old car. That was the year he won 10 races. And then last year, we kind of saw a little different race. Started in the evening, had some rain delays. Didn't have that many cautions other than the rain delays. I think they had one for like potential fluid and maybe a spin or something like that. And then the weather came through and it changed the track tremendously. So Chase Elliott's car came alive. He was solid prior to that, but not, nothing great. And then, so what we're going to see tonight, is kind of up in the air. We've had 2 races here this weekend, the trucks at night, and then Xfinity yesterday. Both of them were good. Saw a lot of cautions between them, but also saw some long green flag runs in both of them too. But what I liked most was we saw some passing. We saw some good, racing, especially for the lead. And hopefully we'll see that this evening. Now, it was very, very tough to pass the leader, much more so than other cars within the field. So that's something to keep in mind. But, it was much better than what we saw at Gateway, much better than what we saw at Sonoma. So hopefully we'll see a very good race tonight. There is a chance for some weather this evening in Nashville. I think the chances have gone down, so hopefully it'll hold off. But I'm pretty confident from what I am seeing that the race will definitely start, and more than likely it'll get at least halfway, if not more, before the chance of rain, comes in. But this track itself is concrete. It compares to Dover in that sense that it's concrete. And then if you listen to a lot of chatter, among the drivers, a lot of them say, Dover is somewhat of a comparison to it. And then other drivers say Kansas. But, a lot of them say it drives, kind of like a intermediate, but then also a short track in some sense because of the braking that's involved with it. So it's kind of its own beast. But I think, like, if you're wanting to, look at one thing, I would look at the concrete more than anything else. Because, like, if you look at the results of Dover and this race last year and then Dover this year, you see a lot of the same names in the top 10.
Now, as I look at ownership projections in terms of not so much how much points are going to be scored, but in terms of ownership, I kind of like what I'm seeing because I'm not seeing like your typical top heavy NASCAR race, right? You typically have your like 2 or 3 chalk guys are going to be 40% ish. Then you have your dominators, which are also going to be 20% ish. Mikey, with all due respect, go fuck yourself. Okay. So, overall, I do like the fact that you get scattered ownership today. And look at the odds, right? Like you got, it seems like 25 drivers ish, less than 100 to 1. Am I somewhere in the ballpark there, Coop? So yeah, I mean, obviously, the odds kind of look like it's going to play closer to a speedway in that regard, or a super speedway in that regard. But I get it that the track doesn't exactly fit the mold of a super speedway. We'll talk on a few drivers as well. Obviously, as we go through this, 3 drivers.
I think like before you start, like you got to kind of like come up with a plan to like, you think this race is going to be like the Xfinity race yesterday, where they were racing 2:30 Central Time, 3:30 Eastern Time. It was like 92 degrees. It was blazing hot, and the track was very slick, and it showed. The cars are very tough to handle. They were all over the place. And, there were a lot of accidents. And then, as it went through, less cars were there. So they got more, of a long green flag run. But do you see that, happening early tonight? Obviously it's a couple hours later, but it's still going to be hot. Also, I'm pretty sure that they got a good bit of rain this morning. So the track is going to be completely green. I think the best shot for accidents is early in the race. And then, late in the race, obviously, as it's coming down to the end and they're fighting for positions and things of that nature. But I think once the, sun goes down and the track cools, the accidents will be, less often.
It's a lot of decent points to talk through there. Before I address that briefly, I will say that Mike, you're not allowed to start getting soft on me. Okay, you can't now take back what you said and now call it a great haircut. And Gavin, add you to the list of people that can go fuck themselves. Okay, Ellen DeGeneres would die to have a haircut like this. Okay, absolutely die to have a haircut like this.
Yeah, the other thing that stuck out like yesterday was, if you looked at the Xfinity race, like they had 50 minutes of practice, just like the Cup cars, but the practice meant absolutely nothing compared to what happened in the race. Josh Berry was very good in practice. He shit the bed in the race. Wasn't, he was decently fast, but he never contended for the win or by any means. Sam Meyer the same way. How much do you trust practice is another question. Because in that race, the cars that qualified well were the ones that, did the best. So track position does mean something here. It's not like the easiest track to pass on, but you will see some passing and much more than what we have seen the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it looks like, based on what you're saying, it really looks like maybe try to pick 5 or 6 folks near the top chalk and maybe fade them, with all this added potential variance of what could go wrong. And not that we don't expect that in NASCAR anyway, but, maybe an extra added flavor of it this week. And I'll be honest, like looking at some of these pricing and ownership projections, I do have a lot of question marks, but we'll talk through it. Coop, let's start with your dominators. There's a lot of laps up for grabs, right? The Ally 400, some may call it the Alley 400, 300 laps of points to grab. Chastain's got the pole today. It's going to be up there with Reddick. My issue with Chastain is just I don't know if it was last year. Maybe he just had a great car, and that was the way he was able to drive in his style without issues. This year, it doesn't appear like he has the same car, and it's limited his ability to kind of push through the field as he's always been. Track like this, he starts in first. You're going to need a hell of a lot of Dominator points out of him because all he can go is backwards from there. Coop, in terms of Dominator, he's obviously got to be in the discussion. Who else do you like up there, and what's your thoughts on Chastain today?
Yeah, Ross is in a pretty scary situation, in my opinion. He hasn't had much speed the last couple weeks. And then out of nowhere, he arrives here, and that car is blazing fast. He was at the top of the practice charts in a lot of the, 5, 10, 15, 25 lap metrics. And then, the track was a little bit cooler when they did the practice. Then they come out in the hot conditions yesterday. And although it was only 2 laps, he put down 2 blazing laps. His actual qualifying lap, like he crushed the field. So that's scary because one, Ross usually doesn't run or qualify or practice very well. So when he does, it's kind of an eye opener. 2, if you go back and you look at, like I was talking about, concrete tracks, Ross has been very good at Dover, and he was very good here last year. He was good earlier this year in Dover too. So that makes a case there to play him. Another key thing happening, I think, is a positive for Ross is he's got the number 1 pit stall, and his pit team is very, very fast. So that's a positive. And then, I think this could be a good opportunity for Ross to become more aggressive if he does fall back a little bit. Because if you watch the Xfinity race and the truck race, you've got to be aggressive in order to pass on these restarts. And we all know that Ross is aggressive. So I think that's a benefit for him. The one thing I do worry about Ross, and that's later in the race, is if the track does start changing conditions, I don't think his team is as good as some of the others at adjusting the car to meet their needs. But I could see Ross going out and smoking this field. He was that good in practice. And like I said, it's just kind of scary. how he sets up this week, because typically he doesn't qualify or practice very well. Reddick was right behind him. Reddick has had speed here recently, but he's had issues that get into him every week, which has hurt him. So he's a nice pivot off of Ross. Truex is going to be very popular. Truex is the betting favorite. He does very good on concrete. He was solid in practice, solid in qualifying. He ran very, very good here last year. So definitely somebody who Ross and Truex will be the two highest owned dominators by far. I think Will Byron's a nice pivot too. Another driver who shows up often on these concrete tracks. He's been solid all year. He's been fast all year. He was fast this week. I think he has a good shot to lead. And then the last guy I have is Bubba Wallace. Bubba has done well on these concrete tracks. And then, he didn't have the greatest, practice, but he could have very well easily won the pole for this race. If not spinning, coming down to the start-finish line. Plus, Bubba's had a lot of speed here in the recent weeks. So, he was very good here last year. Much better than his results show. So I think he is an outside, dominator, but I think he's worth playing too because of his price. And, if he gets up in the second and third, gains a couple fastest laps here and there, he doesn't need much, to pay off his price.
There's a lot there, and I'll address a few questions, Coop, before I get to some points on things you said. Can you roster Ross and Reddick? The answer there is yes, Yeezy. The issue is, of course, you more or less need both to lead a handful of laps. And again, that can happen, but you do need them both to probably lead, especially the guy who comes in second, who ends up coming in second. You're going to need him to lead at least 50, 60 laps to make up the place differential for the price you're paying from the back. So the short answer is yes, you can. It'll make you a little different. But man, you'll need to find a cheap place differential guy that clicks along with both of them leading a bunch of laps. Can certainly happen. Lower percentage of things for sure, but because that lower percentage is going to mean the ownership is going to be lower. So as far as Ross looking to be chalky Mikey, I don't necessarily think so. But again, my definition of chalk in this sport is basically anybody 25% or over. Chastain looks to be 20% or less today as far as his ownership. Look, he's at the pole. It's a track with a lot of laps to be led. But what Coop said, and which is true, Truex is going to be the guy people want to play today. He's got the place differential. It's where he thrives. Truex is going to be a little higher owned. Believe it or not, out of the three of them, it looks like people are going to want to play Reddick more. Maybe because he's the cheapest.
Yeah.
But probably.
That's what I was going to say. I think a Chastain Byron will be lower owned than Chastain Reddick.
Chastain Byron. Yeah. I could see that for sure. That's part of the reason why I do like, when I was mentioning on how I was looking at ownership numbers, I do like how this track's pretty scattered. Like there's no de facto chalk today. Like usually you look at it, it's like, hey, what kind of good chalk are we playing today? There's chalk, but it's not nearly as high today. It's going to be scattered quite a bit. So if he's 20%, what chance he dominates most of the race and finishes top five? Didn't we say? Yeah, look, if you're playing Ross today, you're more or less assuming he's going to beat Reddick out of the front, maybe even take the whole first stage, and then hopefully, finish for you in top five from that point, which is possible. I just haven't liked what I've seen from him at all. Coop, when was the last time he was in an optimal?
Dover. I don't know about an optimal, but he was very good at Dover.
Was that where?
Last time he was very good. Was
that where he finished second? The Worth 400?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was very likely in that optimal. But we're talking once all year. He may have been in the optimal in the Pala Casino 400, but he was definitely in the optimal in the Worth 400. But outside of that, this dude just struggles to find his way into the optimal. Now, granted, he's got the pole for the first time, I think, this season. Maybe he does more with it. but I just have not liked what I've seen from him at all.
I think it's going to be hard for him to fall out of the top five. If he does fall out of the top five, it's because he's gotten pinched up on top of the racetrack from a car on the bottom, or two cars took him three wide and he was in the middle and he falls back loses some spots that way. But as long as he has his clean air, he's going to be tough to not stay out of the top five because, like I said, his pit team and that first stall is going to be very good for him.
An interesting question as you're building lineups, how you want to build them, because you need dominators in this track. But man, if you play two of those guys at the top together, you have some severe place differential issues. But needless to say, I guess that all comes with part of the the kind of the roster construction, right? So you leverage that as much as you'd like. And somebody brought up a good point with Prize Picks giving you some valuable data in terms of laps led. They have his number at 57 laps led.
I would take the over.
And they have his fastest laps at 37. I'll tell you what, that says a lot. That does say a lot. So yeah, I mean, as far as the betting markets are concerned, a lot of respect for Ross today. So, leverage that as much as you want. Could play them both together with Reddick. Again, I just think it creates an interesting sticking point for you, how the rest of your team looks. Just keep that in mind.
I think one way to get different on Chastain is playing him by himself and as a complete dominator, or playing him with Bubba as Bubba being the second dominator, or, a place differential play. Or playing like Bubba, Reddick, and Chastain, like three of those.
Yeah, this is definitely a track where Bubba makes sense. But yeah, he's a guy I typically play every week. I'm a Bubba guy. I scratch my head sometimes at the random mistakes that gets made around him. Not always his fault. Sometimes it's his pit. Sometimes it's a random tire getting loose on him. But man, tough scene sometimes for my guy Bubba. All right, so we'll move on to the next part, the place differentials. Now, I wouldn't say there's anything concrete here, right? Christopher Bell probably figures to be the highest owned driver on the slate, potentially. I think it makes a lot of sense. But I'll tell you what, Eric Jones is going to see good ownership as well. This is a guy that, as far as the market is concerned, has some good odds this race compared to how he normally does. Obviously, he must like the Crete, if you will. But in regards to here, I mean, DraftKings, he's 65-1 to win this thing. On FanDuel, he's might be a little bigger on FanDuel, unless I'm not seeing this right. Hold on. Actually, that's interesting. He's actually much bigger on FanDuel to win this race. 150-1 on FanDuel, 65-1 on DraftKings. So let me just let you know, folks, if you're going to bet this dude to win this race, please bet him on FanDuel. But it is interesting, the odd discrepancy there. So clearly DK must have gotten hit with some sharp money in relation to Eric Jones today. Take that for what it's worth. But walk us through place differential, who you like here. I know I mentioned a few names. Eric Jones wasn't in your list here, but walk us through some other names and maybe give some thoughts on Eric Jones as well.
Yeah, I can't trust Eric Jones. This is not Eric Jones from last year. The car is much, much slower. So if he's getting some steam, I'll gladly take that and fade it. And if he beats me, he beats me. But I'll take my shot that there's a lot of other drivers out there that beats Eric Jones. More power to the people that play him. Chris Bell, like you said, there's not a lot of place differential from 20th on back as far as non-value type of drivers, and he will be quite chalky. But I think he could end up being good chalk. Bell hasn't been great here recently, and possibly maybe this track is what he needs to turn his season around and get it headed into a championship type of season. He runs very good on the concrete. If you look at his results at Dover and here, and in general, he does well on flat tracks. That's a good thing. And then if you look at his practice speeds, they were very good too. So, I like Chris Bell this week. I think he has, definitely top 10 upside. I think he has outside top 5 upside. If everything falls right, I would not be shocked if the kid won. So we'll have to wait and see how all that plans out. Ricky Stenhouse is going to be there. He's popular. They haven't adjusted his price, kind of like maybe they have Ty Gibbs price, and he's starting 28th. He's going to, get some chalk. He has top 20 upside, outside top 15 upside. The fear with Ricky is you're always going to have the old Ricky. But if you look at what Ricky's done this year, he's been very consistent. He's had best year all over all season in his career. So, I don't mind some Stenhouse. I think the pivot off of both of those is Brett Keselowski. Keselowski at his price isn't going to get much ownership. He doesn't have the place differential upside that those two have. But if somehow, he squeaks out and beats them, you're going to have a lot of leverage on the field. So, don't be afraid to take some shots at Brad Keselowski.
I'll say this with Kez. I really just don't like the price, at least on DraftKings. Mm-hmm. You talk, win equity, you talk place differential, the whole bit, and like who's priced. And I know you're saying that you don't think he's going to see much ownership. At least from what I'm seeing, it's going to be more than 20%. People are going to play this dude today. So again, the win equity is not great, but it's good enough. And he's priced around. I'm just trying to pull, his options around him, right? Like, are you going to play Bowman? Are people really going to pay $7,800 for Ty Gibbs? I mean, yeah, they will, but is it warranted? Danny Suarez, I'd argue, is cheap.
I think I would have more apt to click on Gibbs and Bowman before Keselowski, because if you look at this track in general, Toyota and Chevy, especially Hendrick Motorsports, have been very good here.
Yeah, Bowman makes a lot of sense. Bowman definitely
Ford wasn't very good. So that's why I guess I'm kind of looking at it where he goes lower on.
Yeah, Bowman definitely makes a lot of sense. I'll be honest, like I'd even rather play 8,800 Harvick over 8,000 Keselowski. I know he starts up a few spots above. And yeah, Ty Gibbs will be popular today, guys. I know that Ty Gibbs is a trendy name. It feels like as the weeks go on, people are liking this kid more and more, and I get it, right? The pedigree, the whole bit. He's looked good. But man, 7,800 at sub 26% ownership for Ty Gibbs. I'm personally not in love with that, only starting from 16th. But
I mean, I guess that's why I kind of look at it, because if you look like earlier in the year, like Ty was sub 7,000, and they've raised his price up. And I mean, we've seen it over the 8Ks, but like it just doesn't seem like they've raised the Ricky Stenhouse price up. He's in the lower 7s. Like you would think he would be in the mid to higher 7s with what he's been doing this year.
Yeah, like Stenhouse, I guess, just doesn't race well on this type of track. Like his odds to win this race are abysmal. But I want to be clear, I'm not against Ty Gibbs. I think the price is fine. But again, another driver consistently seems to start in this area and just practically never gets in the optimal. Like the one time he did was the All-Star race or the All-Star Open, if you even count that. Outside of that, this dude, I don't think has been in a single. He might have been in the optimal. Oh, he definitely was in the optimal in the Better Health 400. Definitely. Outside of that, though, this dude has not been in a single optimal all season long. Again,
I think if you go back to Dover on the concrete, he ran really well there. I think it was one of the tracks where he ran out of gas or had to stop because he was going to run out of gas. But I think he was up in the around top 5 at Dover.
I mean, Jake, just to answer your question, Harvick, Reddick, 1v1. I mean, I'd think you'd have to play Reddick. Harvick will likely also be higher owned, believe it or not, just because of the added place differential and the fact that people will play like Chastain and the guys around Reddick more. But I'll be honest, that's a lot more even, I think, than it looks. Because you look at it, it's like, oh yeah, I would definitely play Reddick over Harvick. But like when you take all things into consideration, place differential, the whole bit, Harvick's not a crazy look there over Reddick.
Reddick has a lot of liability, a lot more liability than Harvick.
Yeah, and I know Phil is saying McDowell, LaJoy, hard to avoid. I'll be honest, I don't want to majorly disagree, but it looks like Corey LaJoy, if I'm reading this correctly, is he 900 to 1 to win this race, Coop? is that right?
Yeah.
And McDowell's 300 to 1 to win this race. Typically, these types of drivers aren't even offered betting odds on FanDuel. Let me just see. Corey LaJoy's 250 to 1 on FanDuel. McDowell's 200 to 1 on FanDuel. So again, if you like Corey LaJoy, I know obviously you're not picking him to win the race, right? Of course not. But from where he's starting, and we are talking place differential, right? So from where he's starting, let me just pull up LaJoy. So LaJoy's in 36, he's 5,300. I get it, right? But man, this dude is quite dog shit for this track. McDowell, 33rd. I mean, I get it from a variance perspective or from an attrition perspective. These guys can kind of crawl their way to the front, but keep in mind, this is a short track. Like, these dudes are going to fall laps down. So, I mean, right, Coop, is there going to be a competition caution here?
No, I don't think so, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, so you guys might be hearing thunder on my back end. It's pretty loud by me. That might be what you're hearing. But yeah, Phil, I get it, right? They're in the 5Ks, but keep in mind, like, you still need these dudes to move up the field. Like, from where they're starting, it's not going to be long before they go a lap down. Like, it's just not. So yeah, I think if you're playing them realistically, you just need that caution, or even multiple cautions to avoid them falling. I mean, do you disagree, Coop?
No, I wouldn't disagree. I think that if we do get a competition caution, it's a plus for them because it's going to delay their opportunity at losing that lap. But if we don't, and as fast as Chastain's been, they could go down pretty quickly a lap. So, that just limits their upside. So they are going to be very, very popular. I'm going to be underweight on both of them.
What's interesting to me is, as I look at ownership projections, they're actually not as popular here. Now, granted, I haven't fully trusted the data I've been looking at for months now, but I do think you're going to get LaJoy at like 15 to 20% ownership. I think people are going to click his name because I think that he's starting from 36th. He's a decently well-known name. He's 5,300. He can luck box his way into a T20. And at 5,300, you just don't need a lot from him. But man, the odds around this dude to do anything today are like abysmal. Like, just to put into perspective, this dude has the same betting market odds as JJ Yeley. Like, so, I mean, again, Ty Dillon, JJ Yeley, Corey LaJoy, exact same odds today to do anything. Harrison Burton, Michael McDowell, Noah Gregson, all have similar odds today to do anything in this race. So,
like, if you're playing FanDuel, I definitely wouldn't play any of them because FanDuel's much, much more important with the finishing position than place differential.
I'll tell you what, if LaJoy is going to be 30% owned, that's absolutely asinine to me. Like, he's, to me, at 30%, even at 20%, he's a great fade. Look, he can beat you. But this is a track that's going to have accidents. It's going to have issues. I want no part of Corey LaJoy today. Absolutely no part of Corey LaJoy. Starting from the back. Now, to Coop's point, if they announce late that there's going to be a comp, and they could announce that late, right? Because of the rain?
Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure it rained this morning there. And usually if it rains in between practice and the race, they have a competition caution.
So if that becomes official, that a competition caution's in play, Corey LaJoy becomes a better play. I still don't think it's going to matter. This dude is going, the only way this dude moves up the field is if there's literally like 12, 15 cars in front of him that all do not finish this race today. Okay. And if that happens, that most often means that there's going to be multiple accidents that Corey LaJoy has to also avoid. Mm-hmm. So that's my take on him. Granted, he can get there, but if the dude's going to be 25, 30% owned, I think in the way NASCAR works, the format, asinine to play this dude today. Especially with the short track, with the easy ability to go laps down, to be drawn. You could be, You don't get a competition caution. This goes clean the whole green stage. You're dead in the beginning of the race with Corey LaJoy. So just keep that in mind. All right, move on to middle tier folks. Coop, who do we like in this range? Kind of makes sense to hang around. We're talking that 7 to 9K range where drivers are starting from the middle of the pack. Get you a little place differential, a little win equity. Who's your favorite plays here?
I mean, we hit on Ty Gibbs already. All these drivers, they have the upside, but they also carry downside too, because they're starting, mid-pack, so they could go either way. I don't think any of them really have Dominator upside whatsoever. If they do, it's going to be a crazy situation that they would get into that. But Ty Gibbs is there. Kevin Harvick, I know he's, a little more expensive than these middle tier guys, but I think he's going to be a good pivot. I think he's a good pivot off of like Reddick. He's a good pivot off of Bubba Wallace. He kind of also makes sense to play with them to kind of get a little different. So I don't mind him. I think he has top 10 upside. I don't know if he has top 5 upside. We'll have to wait and see. Alex Bowman, a driver, who starts 15th, has that price. Are you going to click Keselowski or are you going to kick Bowman first? One of those guys is going to be lower owned. So I think taking some shots on him too. And then finally, Chris Buescher. Buescher was fast in practice, and I think he has top 10 upside. And his starting position hopefully will keep people away where he starts 12th. But if you look at last year's race, you look at concrete in general, Buescher runs very well on concrete. So, I definitely have some interest in Buescher if he's definitely going to be low owned.
Interesting. I think there's obviously a few guys here, and I'd argue that you're going to need at least one of these guys in your lineup to win. These are typically not the guys you really love playing, right? Because you love playing Dominators at tracks like this. You do love getting your place differential where you can at tracks like this. This middle tier is quite interesting today, but this is why ownership is quite scattered. I will likely have some Ty Gibbs. I'm definitely going to be underweight the field, though. I'm not going to fade him. I do like Bowman a lot today. He makes a lot of sense to be in lineups. Chris Buescher is probably the most interesting of the bunch for me. I don't love the price. I don't love the starting point. I look at that 7,500 area, right? And it's like Stenhouse is in there, who's going to be somewhat popular. Suarez, who not a lot of people are going to play, but has better upside. Like I feel like you're getting like a bottom price for Suarez or a near bottom price for Suarez. Meanwhile, the price for Buescher is like right about on par where he normally is. So just based on that alone, I have to like Suarez more. And then you even look at like win equity. Chris Buescher's 80 to 1. Daniel Suarez is also 80 to 1, but he's got better odds to finish in front, obviously because he's starting up closer. So I don't know. I'd probably rather, I'm just trying to look at ownership numbers. I'd rather play a lower owned Suarez, if that makes sense, than a slightly higher owned Buescher. I can't mind it though. The middle tier is the most difficult for me in this race. Normally it's not, but the way this race plays out, I think it's the most difficult to find, your right speed. I do like Harvick a lot, so I will have him.
I really wish Suarez was starting in 10th spot, because that would make, I think, more people jump on him, and it would probably take more people off of Buescher. But he's going into a backup car, and he's going to be starting at the rear.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. So that does change things a lot. I didn't realize that. Do you know while we're on the topic group? Do you know who else is moving to the rear?
It was somebody else. I can't think off the top of my head. If it comes across, I'll let you know. But yeah, my concern with Suarez is, he's been up and down this year. He definitely had a fast car, in practice and stuff. But he's got to navigate all that traffic. And, he's been, having issues where sometimes he creates accidents and then other times where he just happens to find them. So I think if he can get back up there, it's really good for him. But I think getting back up there is going to be, the struggle and the challenge for him.
Yeah, I think knowing that now he's coming from the back, that's a lot to ask. A lot to ask of him. And I'm just looking through the full, what it fully looks like in terms of drivers moving to the back. Actually, this isn't right because I guess he got moved to the back after this lineup came out.
Yeah.
So I guess in theory, Suarez would start from 35th and LaJoie would start from 36th because LaJoie was also sent to the back.
Yeah.
All right. So LaJoie is still in dead last, or DFL as folks like to call it.
Now Suarez is still scored from his 10th place starting position.
Correct.
So don't want to mislead
Correct.
people.
It does give a little added benefit maybe to a guy like McDowell, who I'm not totally against, to be honest. A guy like Corey LaJoie today, I can't play. He beats me today. He beats me, but the ownership around him, based on his betting expectations, are just wild to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Value Town, as you call it, Coop. I already briefly touched on McDowell.
Yeah.
I'll let you give your thoughts on LaJoie too, because obviously, look, he's going to be a trendy guy today, right? So I'll let you give your thoughts, of course, on him and who else you like in that value range that isn't like drawn dead from the start, right? So talk us through some of these guys.
I think there's going to be 3 drivers that gain the ownership. Obviously, we talked about McDowell. We talked about LaJoie. I'm going to be underweight on both. I think playing both of them together is not good because for both of them to succeed is going to be difficult. Maybe one of them does. Take your shot, take your jab, and go from there. That's why I'm underweight. I think, like to what you said, JJ, their upside is capped because they lose laps. So we'll just have to wait and see. The other driver that's probably going to get some ownership is AJ Allmendinger. Dinger is very good on concrete. He won here yesterday. That's going to drive his ownership up. The one thing that could keep it down, though, is his starting position. Starts 19th, not great. When you look at, where the rest of his peers are starting, if you're looking for the place differential. But the thing with AJ, he has something that all these drivers down there don't have unless there's utter chaos within that race. And I think AJ could finish around 10th. None of the other drivers down there can do that. I think after that, you're pretty much taking some shots in the dark, and you're going to see, lower ownership on the majority of the rest of the drivers. I like Eric Almirola. He likes flat tracks, and I don't think anybody's going to play him. Priced right next to AJ Allmendinger. And, if he beats him, you're going to get him at a much, much better ownership position. Austin Cindric, Austin Dillon, Ryan Preece are the other drivers I like taking some shots at, just to be different, it's NASCAR. Anything can happen. And I think, of the drivers, like, especially if Eric Jones is going to get some ownership, like you were talking earlier, where, he starts right around Cindric and Preece and Almirola, and Austin Dillon, that should just lower their ownership more. So those are the guys that I'm going to take a couple shots at here and there. But I think, the other thing too is, like, you don't have to have a lot of value drivers in your lineup this week, especially if you avoid the 10K drivers.
Yeah. I mean, you really don't, right? Because, even if you play one of these 10K dudes, like, you're more than likely not going to play a ton of them. And this is a race where Larson's not going to see his typical, 35, 40% ownership, right? So, his price is in another league. And Kyle Busch, let me ask you this, because we haven't talked on Kyle Busch much at all. Dude's priced at 11-2. Yeah. It's like the 7th or 8th highest odds driver to win today. Mm-hmm. To me, that tells me he's likely just going to be practically unowned. I mean, I know they're showing here 15%, but to me, this dude's going to be sub 10. Who's
he
playing?
Could be sub 10. Like, I can't take my shot at Kyle Busch today because I don't see him leading laps. The price is the killer. If he was like 10K, yeah, maybe different, but 11K, we're talking a different ball game. He's been good here recently, but he's not been great. And what he's been really good at is being able to find track position and being able to hold on to the track position. And that's what's got him some good finishes. He could have very easily finished mid-pack without those, good choices. So I just can't – I don't see the upside from a Dominator perspective, so I can't play Kyle Busch.
Interesting. And what about another driver that we haven't even brought the name up yet, Denny Hamlin? Like,
Yeah,
love.
I don't mind people playing Hamlin, but like I can't play everybody, and I'm just going to take a stand on Hamlin. Uh, I think uh, Reddick and Truex have better cars, and I think Bubba might have about the same type of car as him, and I wouldn't put Chris Bell out of it too. Like I just don't think he has the best Toyota, but I could be wrong. He doesn't have phenomenal concrete stats either. So, I wouldn't, mind if you want to play him and take shots at him. It's just not where I'm going to go. I just can't play everybody.
Yeah, fair. And I know you mentioned even like we'll I guess just two more drivers, Scoop, just to give your perspective to kind of round out everything, right? Chase Elliott and who's the other one? Talk on Chase Elliott. I know there's one more name, and Logano, the two of them, right? Guys that are going to see between 15 to 25% ownership today. Any love for either of those two?
No, if Joey Logano was starting farther back, like even mid-pack, like, the Bowman and the Keselowskis, the Gibbs and stuff like that, I have interest. But I don't think he has enough to compete with the Fords. I mean, the Chevys of HMS and Chastain, and definitely not the Toyotas. So I don't see him staying up there very long.
8,600 Logano just seems wild. Like I know
I'd rather play Bubba. Like even if he was starting where Bubba started, I think maybe you could play him. But starting third, that's going to be difficult because like he has to have his points come from fastest laps and laps led, and I don't see him beating the two drivers that are in front of him, and then Truex is right behind him. So I can't play Joey Logano.
Can't blame that at all.
Chase Elliott was the toughest decision I had on here. And his price is what, like 10-2, 10-4, something on that ballpark.
Yeah.
Starting 14th, I think. But like I don't know if he has a car that can lead. Everybody's going to look at it and be like, oh, yeah, look at what happened last year. He came alive, once the sun went down and everything. That doesn't mean it's going to happen this year. Chase Elliott just hasn't been Chase Elliott this year. He's had, the off, track injury. He's had, the on track, pushing and shoving of Denny Hamlin's car, which led to the suspension. His car hasn't been, dominant when he's raced it by any means. So I could see Chase Elliott finishing in the top 5. But if he doesn't get the Dominator points, it's not going to do you any good because of his price. So ultimately, I'm going to fade him. He's very good on concrete. But I think the ultimate reason why is like he's Chase Elliott. People love to play Chase Elliott. So I think he's going to get 15, 20% ownership. And I think, it could be an edge to fade him.
What am I missing today with Chase Briscoe? It doesn't look like anybody at all is talking about him.
Yeah.
6,900 starting from 18th, looking to see pretty low ownership today. Maybe not as low as I'm looking at, but overall low ownership today. Is this just not his cup of tea?
No, I mean, he would fall in that bucket of drivers that I said, like Cindric and Priest and Austin Dillon, that I just want to take shots at. And, Briscoe very well could be that driver, that does well out of all of them. So no issues whatsoever if you want to take some shots on Chase Briscoe.
Cool. I know we mentioned a few guys, and I know you mentioned some guys you potentially might be fading, but we'll talk on briefly on fadings. Who do you feel are strong conviction fades today?
Well, Hamlin will be for me. Kyle Busch will be for me. Suarez, Logano, Larson. Larson's just not Larson right now. The one thing, I was talking to Jay that he likes about Larson is he unloaded well. He was solid in practice and everything, and usually that means he's going to do well. But I don't know if he has the speed to compete with Chastain and the top Toyotas. So I'm going to stay away from him. Like he's in the same situation as Kyle Busch. He's got to get those Dominator points. And if he doesn't, he's going to be hurting you. But then again, like if you're looking to be different, man, play Larson, play Busch, but they're very risky plays. They could bury you very quickly, or they could put you at the top very quickly. So those are really the big ones that I'm looking to fade.
Interesting. Yeah, because ultimately, as we look at ownership, I'll be honest, Coop, like even at the top, like your highest price guys will go from Larson at 11.6 all the way over to Reddick at 9.1. I really don't expect too many guys in this area to be more than 30% owned. Granted, people will like Truex today. Yes, people will like, Reddick at the price or Chastain in their own way. Byron's going to get some attention. Elliott because of the place differential. Christopher Bell, who I stopped it. Well, I didn't stop it. Obviously, Reddick's cheaper than him. Like Bell, to me, will see a lot of ownership today. Maybe Elliott too. But outside of that, it's going to be scattered today, guys. So, I mean, feel free to kind of mix and match where you want to play guys, where you want to take stands, fade certain drivers as well. But Coop, is there anything else you want to add here before we wrap up?
No. I think we hit on quite a bit of it.
Yeah, good stuff. And guys, remember, like the video. It's not hard. This race is a night race. Normally, we end this video, and then the race starts in about an hour and a half. Not the case today. Race is going to start in about 5.5 hours from now. So keep that in mind. Hopefully, when it does come up, it is green throughout and there's no issues. But, obviously, that's more of Mother Nature's job. You going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I guess, between now and then, the two biggest things to watch is, one, will there be a competition caution? And two, any drivers that go to the rear that are going to have unapproved adjustments. But, drivers starting mid-pack to the back, I wouldn't worry about it. It would be the drivers who are starting up front going to the rear.
Yeah, that competition caution, I do feel pretty confident at minimum that competition caution will protect your drivers basically from 30th down. I still think there is a chance that maybe 34 through 36-ish, maybe even 33, 36-ish could be vulnerable to get lapped prior to that. But, man, it would take some blazing folks. Mikey brings up a good point. You got 70 folks watching. It was only 20 likes. Now we got 43. We can get that number to 60 at least, folks. Come on, don't be complete freeloaders. Mikey likes Bowman. What does that mean, Coop? That means we completely fade Bowman today. So appreciate the information, Mikey. Keep up the good work. All jokes aside, Chris, appreciate your Myers. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Yeezy, of course, as well. Always loved you guys being very fruitful in the comments too. Chevy Chase instead of Chase Briscoe. All right, so folks, as always, stay safe, run pure, and yes, gamble responsibly. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy yourselves.